Hello everybody, GL1 here. Welcome to my online toy museum. And remember, a few episodes ago, I showed you this awesome RC car from Mould King that is four-wheel steering and had treads, but its off-road capabilities not so good. So I put on tires, big tires. So we're going to see how it works now, and I think you'll see that it's got some real climbing ability now. High torque motors. Let's see, I can't quite do that. Let's pick it up here though and see how it does on the mulch. And get some four-wheel steering action there. So it's slow, it only has one speed, but certainly a lot better than treads as far as its off-road capability. And we'll go backwards. So really quite a functional mountain climbing, rock climbing vehicle, right? So let's turn it this way. There you go. All right, get a good side view of that. And let's see it climb up the rocks. Like a side view of that going up. And there you go. Can't quite make it up that. That's a little bit much. All right, so let's talk about what I did with this. All right, so here are the treads, right? And I did make a little bit of a modification on the tread. I lowered these, kind of this wheel assembly, lowered it a little bit. So I'm going to give that a try eventually. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get some black shoe goo because these treads are just so slippery. And I'm going to put little bumps of shoe goo. It'll dry like a little round rubber knob, and that'll give it some better capability. So I'll be doing that, and then we'll test it out in the future. Now, I want to give some detail onto this. So if you look here, you can see that the wheels, the tires, they're two different sizes, okay? And that would normally be a problem if the vehicle had a single motor and a drive shaft. So let's say it had a single motor in the middle or in the front, and then it had a drive shaft to the front wheels and to the rear. That would mean that the one motor, two differentials, it'd all be running at the same speed. So if you had two different size wheels and tires, then what would happen is the larger wheel would be spinning faster than the smaller one. And in this case, it is spinning faster. But because it would also be part of the same gear assembly and motor, then that would be damaging to the vehicle. It would damage the gear system because this would be going faster than this one can. But this vehicle has two different motors. There's a motor in the front and the back, two different gear setups, its own differential front and back. So what you end up with is that the rear wheels are going slightly faster than the front, but what they're going to do is they're just going to push it faster or pull it in reverse faster. And that's really not going to damage anything. It's pulling that motor a little bit faster than it would or pushing it a little bit faster, but it's not really going to damage anything, and the speed's not that great of a difference. So that would be okay. I don't have four of this size or four of this size, so that really is why that happened. I do have four of this, but I declined to put that because it's really going to be out of proportion. But it might be neat. It would be really torquey, but they just don't have the size really to grip a lot of things. The smaller the tire and wheel, it would have more torque. But larger tire would have more speed but less torque. Although with this vehicle, it's so torquey, it probably won't make that much of a difference. So it's better just to have a little bit more speed and bigger tires that can connect with more ground. But I had an awesome coincidence happen with this whole thing. and I'll show you that right now. So on the other video about the RC vehicle, I had mentioned that years ago, it was 20 years ago actually, 2004, Radio Shack had come out with an RC Hummer that you could have tires or it would have individual treads. At the time it was about $150. I didn't buy it. I've regretted it ever since. So that's why I ended up getting this thing here. But it doesn't really have, you know, all the power and everything I'm looking for, but I still like it, and it's great an engineering feat to build that and find out how everything works. Well, the next day after I did my video on this, lo and behold, I look at a thrift store, I glance to my left, I see this big yellow Hummer. I remembered it from all those years ago. I went in there and I got this thing for $6. Now, this is what I remembered from Radio Shack, and you can get this with treads. But I don't have the treads, I just have the tires for it, and it didn't have a remote, but I got everything working. So what I can tell you about this vehicle is that it's four-wheel drive, it's four-wheel steering, it has four-wheel independent suspension, 2 springs for each wheel. It's very heavy. You can see it's very shocky, but it's very heavy. I'd say it's probably close to 10 pounds. It has a 2-wheel, 4-wheel steering mechanism in the back. This is a servo. You can see it has a steering rod there to steer these wheels, and it has a switch. You can go from 4-wheel steering to 2-wheel. It stopped working, and I can't switch it out of 4-wheel. It was in 2-wheel. I had to push really hard. I got it into 4-wheel, and now it's loose. It'll move, but the motor, something's up with the motor, and it's not working. Eventually, I'll take it apart and see if I can fix it. This is a great design for a Radio Shack RC, probably custom made by Tamiya. A lot of Radio Shack vehicles from back then were Nico. Actually, no, you know what? This is probably a Nico. You have your 540 motor in the center, and then it has drive shafts to the front and back. So this is actually the setup that I was talking about, where you have one motor in the center and a drive shaft to both. You definitely have to have the wheels be the same size, or you'll end up with a problem. It was missing a battery case, but I have the Monster Patrol from back then as well. And my Monster Patrol actually, some of the dog bone connector actually broke. And it's, let me see, what's that thing called? I think it's called a universal joint. So the universal joint broke. So my Monster Patrol doesn't have rear-wheel drive. It's only working on front. It doesn't work very well. I saved it for spare parts, and then this thing came along. And it's basically the same setup, except it has the four-wheel steering. Now, this was, I looked it up, it was 49 megahertz. There's very few Radio Shack RC vehicles that are 49 megahertz. Most are 27 point something. They'll have like 6 different channels, 27 megahertz. But this was 49, and I took a bet, a gamble that the Monster Patrol, which I did remember was 49 megahertz, the remote would work. And sure enough, it does. Not only that, the original remote for this does not have a turbo. This does. And what the turbo is when you push this up, sure, it's forward, this is reverse, but it has, you can push it forward again, and it tells the unit to utilize more voltage and get a little bit more speed. And it works with this, but the original remote doesn't look like it has turbo. So it does now. So this is actually a very torquey vehicle, even though it's heavy. It has headlights, and we're going to take it outside and give it a ride. Okay, so it was also missing the antenna holder. So I have extra of these plastic straws. I had to dig it out here and put this in, and now it works. You really do need to have something like that, because these old frequencies, 49 megahertz, 29 megahertz, 27 megahertz, they really need an antenna up in the air to operate properly. The 2.4 gigahertz, they have little tiny antennas. They work great. They'll go 150 feet, 300 feet without actually having the physical antenna showing. All right, so your on-off switch is right here. Switch that guy on, and the remote, it comes on automatically. It's just it'll turn off after about 6 minutes. So there you go. So let's see if I can keep this. It's very difficult to use a remote and run a vehicle at the same time. So you can see it's got a lot of torque. And it looks like a thunderstorm is coming. I'm going to run this thing up the same gravel area that I did with the other vehicle. All right, hang on a second. And we're going to show what this buddy can do here. Hear thunder in the background. It's a-coming. All right, here we go. No problem. See that? That's what power, bigger tires, torque will do for you. See the headlights? You can even do it backwards. Now, back then, when this thing came out, there were not many, I don't think, there were some nickel metal hydride batteries, but this had a 2000 milliamp NiCad, and it actually still worked. I charged it up, it worked for like a minute or so, but I have a 3600 milliamp nickel metal hydride battery, a lot more power, and a lot better running time. But you actually have to be careful because it can have so much running time that the motor can heat up and burn out, because they weren't meant to run that long. They figured you'd have a NiCad and the thing would stop working in 10 or 15 minutes. But probably can get half an hour out of this. So I'm going to take this and jump it off the curb. Get that angle here. Actually, you know what? You probably would like to see it from here. There we go. Hear that thunder? Ooh, look at that. Pop the wheelie, huh? Talk about torque. And when it gets going, even though the back doesn't steer actively, it steers passively once it gets some momentum going. So you can see actually there's steering a little bit. The other great thing about this vehicle is this is something that they started doing back then. You get these big heavy vehicles. It had a spring on its front bumper. Very helpful to protect the vehicle. All right, so there you go. That's your 2004 Radio Shack Hummer H2. I hope you enjoyed that. Certainly, I am really glad I have this vehicle. And if the tires wear out, I can put the Monster Patrol tires on there. They're a little bit taller, bigger grips, a little bit narrower though. But anyway, I'm having fun with these right now, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.